Hey, we are back with two phenomenal guests. First and foremost, our Congresswoman, Susan Wild, and along with her, the chair of the Democratic Caucus, the chairman, Hakeem Jeffries from New York. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you, Tony. Hi, Hakeem.
Hey, Susan, and thank you, Tony. It's great to be on, and certainly great to be on with Congresswoman Wild.
All right, so let's start on a positive, and I want to say that, and Susan and I talked about this several weeks ago. Do you feel good about the fact that how quickly both sides came together? You know, they aren't perfect in terms of some of the performance, getting monies out and so on. We've had some of those issues, but for the most part, would you both feel good that both the R's and D's came together and passed two bills quickly to help these people, help this economy?
I think we really worked hard and quickly. Much more. It's the fastest thing we've done since I've been in Congress.
Chairman Jeffries, do you agree with that? I mean, I know you try hard to work on both sides of the aisle. Are you happy? Were you impressed with, in this time of need, that both sides came together? Or is that Pollyannic?
Well, we're just engaged as the American people rightly expect us to do at a moment of crisis, and this is a particularly tough moment for our country. We have both a public health crisis and an economic crisis at the same time in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we recognize that it was important for us to move forward in the Congress, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as Americans. And that's what we're going to need to continue to do to meet the needs of the people in the Lehigh Valley and throughout the country.
Chairman Jeffries, I know in our hospitals here in the Valley, we are in pretty good shape. I mean, fingers crossed, thank God. The York situation in your district, tell me, if you can, just a little bit about how that story and how it was in your district.
Thankful for our healthcare heroes who have done such a tremendous job on the front line in battling COVID-19 and the coronavirus pandemic. But certainly during the first few weeks of March into April, the hospitals were overwhelmed, our emergency rooms were overwhelmed, and we needed to create the space necessary to have the capacity, both as it relates to ICU beds and, of course, ventilators. But the New York people throughout the state rose to the occasion in terms of what was necessary to practice social distancing. And at every level of government, we've tried to make sure that we can strengthen our public health infrastructure. So we feel as though it's in a better place right now. But of course, more will need to be done for all of us as we move forward.
Just a quick question, did you feel the support of your colleagues knowing that your district, maybe more so than any, did you feel that on both sides of the aisle, the love, if you will, in terms of what your needs were comparatively?
Well, we have very hard to try to find common ground and to be empathetic of each other's situation. And I've certainly felt that from day one as it relates to how Congresswoman Susan Wild, for instance, interacts with all of us. She cares about the American people. She, of course, fights hard for her district. And I've certainly found that amongst Democratic colleagues and Republican colleagues in the midst of this crisis.
All right, so Congressman Wild, thank you for that. And I want to also ask you, so we took care of this last bill where a hospital is getting more relief and more needs to come. What about municipalities in the states? Some would say these states were in financial trouble before. Why should they be bailed out based on that history? Or could you have said the same about the private sector? Some businesses were bailed out that maybe were teetering also. So your thoughts on this next bill and what you would like to see in it?
I will say that we absolutely are going to need to give assistance to our states and local municipalities. But let me put, I don't like to call it a bailout. This is a situation that nobody envisioned. No municipality could have planned for. This is a matter of making sure that we are taking care of people. And the way we take care of people is take care of the municipalities that provide them with services, that maintain their infrastructure, and that keep them safe. Many of our first responders, our emergency responders throughout this district, are paid directly by their municipalities. I don't think anybody would say that our emergency responders don't deserve to get the kind of assistance that they're asking for and that they need. So this will be a very big priority for me moving forward, yes.
So, Chairman Jeffries, in your history in terms of the political arena, at this point, the debt. I mean, I know people have concerns about that, but do we have to toss that aside and just, in a sense, do what we have to do and, for lack of a better term, worry about that later?
We certainly have to meet the needs of the American people, given the context of the emergency that we're in. And as Congresswoman Wild indicated, one of our top priorities in that regard is going to be to make sure that every state, every city, every town, every county, every municipality will be able to provide the education, the public safety, the sanitation, the transportation, the healthcare services needed to provide for the American people in terms of their health, their safety, and their well-being. Now, we want to proceed in a fiscally responsible fashion, and we have been in communication with the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, and others who have urged us to go big in this moment because the scale of the public health crisis is extraordinary, and the scale of the economic crisis is extraordinary. So it requires an extraordinary response, and that's what we intend to do. Chairman Powell of the Federal Reserve has also said that interest rates are at all-time lows at this point. And so if there was ever a moment for the federal government to make sure that we meet the needs of the American people, it's now.
Got it. Congresswoman, your thoughts on, again, do you believe that this has sort of accentuated the gap between those who have the haves, if you will, and those who are wealthy and maybe not? And is that a concern of yours? I think it is in this upcoming piece.
It's all. We live in a district that has people who are haves and people who are have-nots. There probably aren't many districts across the country that don't have both. And it troubles me greatly when I see that our have-nots have even less as a result of this. They are the ones who are really struggling through this. The people who have lost jobs, the people who do not have white-collar jobs that might be able to be performed from home, the people who lost their health insurance because their employers simply could not keep them employed. Our school district, Allentown School District, is well known in this community as being a real troubled school district in terms of its finances. And we know that until last Monday, they were not even able to get into online learning, whereas our suburban school districts had gotten online almost immediately. I am really happy to say that one of the success stories of the CARES Act is that I just learned this morning that $9.8 million is coming directly to the Allentown School District as a result of the CARES Act that I voted for. And I'm delighted to hear that. I was just on the phone with the school superintendent talking about it, and before that was State Senator Pat Brown. So I'm delighted about that, but it's late. I don't mean the payment is late, but we're late in the game here. These kids have now missed an awful lot of schooling and that they couldn't afford to miss. So that's just an example of the division between the haves and have-nots.
Hakeem, your resume is amazing, and you're mentioned as potential someday Speaker of the House, as the chair of the Democratic caucus. Is it hard for you to balance what some people would say the party that's going to the left, and when you have a moderate district like Congresswoman Wild, just the dynamics? Is it true that sometimes it's got to be a challenge for you to keep everyone in line and everyone happy?
Well, we're a Big Tent party, and we embrace everyone's perspective, whether that is progressives or moderates or more conservative Democrats. All of us are one big family. I embrace the enthusiasm of every single member and the passion that they bring to getting things done on behalf of the people that they represent. But it certainly has been the case that many of the new members, like Congresswoman Wild, represent middle-of-the-road, centrist-leaning districts and come to the Congress with a can-do, common-sense approach to finding common ground and getting things done. And that has been to the advantage of the House Democratic Caucus, to the advantage of the Congress, and to the advantage of the country.
So that's a very, very good point. So when your name is mentioned as a potential future Speaker of the House, how does that play with you?
I've got a job to do right now, one speaker at a time, and the good news is we've got an extraordinary one in Nancy Pelosi, who's working as hard as she can in a bipartisan way to pass bills out of the House that have Republican support and to negotiate with Mitch McConnell and the Trump administration through Secretary of the Treasury Mnuchin. And so we're all part of the team trying to get things done for our district and make sure we advance the ball for the American people.
Congressman Wild, in the 1 minute we have left, I know, again, I want you to be able to talk to the constituents here in the Valley. What are you going to be working on? What's going to be your priorities? And then how intensely are you going to be at that?
Always going to be for people first, our small businesses, the local municipalities, the boroughs, the townships, and so forth that so desperately need it right now. I'm a big believer, you asked about the I'm a big believer that until we get everybody back on their feet, we can't have a thriving economy again. So I believe that this is funding that is essential and that will ultimately be for the betterment of our society. And I'm listening to every single constituent that I talk to every single day. I was on the phone with a businessman just a little while before this appearance. And what I want to hear about is what do they need more of? What do they think worked well? What didn't work well? And then I try to problem solve for them.
Yeah, maybe as the president of the sixth largest chamber, I have to say the last several days, I am hearing more and more, we need to get back. We need to get back. Sensibly, they'll say, but we need to get back. Do you feel that we understand the health of the nation, obviously priority, and then but do you feel the intensity building from the job perspective and business perspective? I'll ask you that, Mr. Chairman, your thoughts. Do you feel that angst rising?
Rising in New York City and throughout the country. We do want to get back to our new normal, but we have to do it in a safe way, consistent with the recommendations that's being made by our public health professionals, because we don't want to have to go through this again. So when we restart the economy, we want to do it effectively, we want to do it comprehensively, and we want to do it with a focus on our displaced workers and getting them back. Of course, standing up for our essential workers and making sure that our Main Street businesses, our mom and pop shops, our women and minority-owned businesses, our businesses that are owned by veterans, our small chambers of commerce, that they can thrive, because you really are the heart and soul of our economy, and we want to do it quickly, but we want to do it the right way as well.
Chairman Jeffries, I know you're a busy man. Thank you so much for your time. Congresswoman Wild, always great to have you. Thanks so much for being. Stay healthy to both of you. And you out there, stay with us. Business Matters, we'll be back for our final segment.
Thank you, Tom.